In this video, I'm going to show you how to hunt mornings and when to hunt mornings and the best tree stand setups for that. So we're getting really close to the rut now. We only got a couple more weeks of, almost 2 weeks of October left until we really start getting to the serious part of hunting. And so I'm going to be starting my morning hunts probably this weekend. And so early season morning hunts are good, but only in the last part of October, not necessarily the first couple of weeks, because it's too hot. There's too big of a risk factor going in there. The deer are going to be in the fields eating then, so there's too big of a risk factor to be hunting during the early season. And you always need to make sure that you're hunting in that last portion of October and not the early part of October, so just so that you're not spooking deer and you're not diminishing your tree stand locations and putting pressure on those good morning spots. But if you're hunting those mornings too early, then you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on them. And then number 2 is the rut, and so this is definitely the best time to be hunting mornings. There's action all day, really not necessarily just the rut, but for the majority of November and that last little portion of October. Those are the best morning hunts, bedding area hunts, and travel corridor spots. A lot of people like to hunt travel corridors in the evening and the afternoon. I really like to hunt those travel movements during the morning from bedding to food. I'm not saying that most people don't do it, but I know some people that only hunt travel corridors during the evening. And so you can still get into travel corridors tree stands without spooking deer. And so those are really good spots. So bedding, travel corridor, tree stands, benches, saddles, all those different types of habitat features are good morning spots if you have a tree stand set up there. And then number 3 is late season. And I have question marks by late season and early season, because it's kind of like, when do you want, or when should you hunt a late season, or should you hunt late season? And so for late season, I do not hunt the mornings. I only hunt food sources, because those bucks are getting back to their bedding areas a lot quicker during the late season than they are during November, and really even early season too. Those deer are getting to their bedding areas super quickly, and by the time you get in there to hunt a bedding area, you're going to be spooking out all the deer in there. So the majority of the time during the late season, I'm not hunting those. Hunting travel corridor spots during the late season is really good too, or most places, travel corridor spots are good in the morning during late season, but those bedding areas especially, you should not be hunting bedding areas during the late season, and only really food sources. And then number 4 is going into food sources, and should you hunt food sources during the morning? And that is a big no. You should never hunt a food source during the morning. You should never hunt a food plot. You should never hunt acorns. You should never hunt acorns in big wooded regions, not necessarily in just normal regions, but in big wooded regions where acorns are the number 1 food source, definitely not morning hunting there. And ag fields, definitely not hunting mornings there. And the reason for that is because those deer are feeding at that time. And if you've seen deer, if you studied what deer do, deer will go to fields, food plots, their big number 1 food source, and they're going to stay there from dusk till dawn. And so if you're accessing even before dawn, you're going to be spooking those deer out in the field. If you have to get to a stand through the field, you're going to be spooking those deer out. And there are some exceptions for that, like here, I can't get to a tree stand without going through a field. So I'm glassing that field with my binoculars before I go into a tree stand. But that's a different story. Food sources during the morning, you're going to be spooking deer out. And even coming back from a tree stand, or coming back home and you have to walk by a field during the evening or during the nighttime, you're going to be spooking deer then too. So you always need to make sure that you know your access trail and your access path and what the deer are going to be doing and where the deer are going to be at when you're entering and exiting your stand. And then number 5 is cold front hunts. And so those are my favorite times to be in the woods, morning or evening, but especially those cold, crisp mornings in a tree stand in bedding areas, and especially in big wooded regions. Those are really great times. I haven't shot a buck during the morning yet, but I have never shot a buck during the morning, but my best hunts have definitely been in the morning. I've seen the most deer during the morning. 2 weeks ago, or last week, I hunted a morning spot, bedding area, or not a bedding area, it was a travel corridor spot. And I hunted that during the morning. It was a cold front that came in. If it wasn't a cold front, I definitely wanted to hunt it because it was kind of early, but only had a certain time to be able to hunt that. So I ended up going in for a morning hunt, and I saw 8 deer. Didn't spook any. I pulled back on a buck. Another buck behind me saw it, and they spooked off. But still, I got to pull back on a buck. I saw 8 deer, 3 of which were mature bucks, and so that was a really, really great time to be in the woods. And so those cold front mornings are really great times to be hunting. So I hope that helps you. And so really for the majority of the season right now, from this time on, hopefully you can be going in there in the morning and being able to hunt. Just remember, during the late season, really after the rut stops, that's when you're only hunting evening food source movement. Those deer are going to be coming from a long ways away to those late season food sources. So just think about all these things before you go on a morning hunt, and hopefully that you're successful during the morning hunts this season.